And so let's start with Pump Out. This is the first one I had involvement with since my main game was Pump It Out, the one with the diagonal arrows. So the original purpose of Pump Out from the maintainer himself was he used it as a training tool. Since there's so many songs in the games, he had no idea what to play, so he would just use it to just pick the songs for him. And then players saw this as an opportunity to use it as a competitive format. So I'm going to show off the first version of Pump Out. Uh-oh, what am I doing? Well, I might have to end my slide to show my browser. 1 second. Okay, here we go. So the first version of Pump Out randomize a list like this. So you have like a list layout, you have a bunch of songs top to bottom. And what we used to do was we would remove songs until there were 3 remaining. Although back then we didn't have this hide feature, so you just have to remember in your head what we removed. So eventually we got this hide feature added to hide songs until there were 3 remaining. And then whenever I started learning how to code, I made a lot of suggestions to this. This is really hard to read, or as you saw earlier, some of the songs, you can't see them on the same screen, especially on like a tablet or mobile device. So you'd have to scroll down to see the rest of the songs. So before my very first big tournament in 2019, about 3 days before it happened, this one came out. We got a compact layout. We got controls on the bottom. And we have all these options. If you want to use the list layout again, you can still get to it. Let me go back to compact layout. But yeah, so now when you veto the songs, which is to remove them, let me take that away for now. They'll fade away like that, which is much easier to tell which songs are not active anymore. And then I took a step further and added protects into our format, which is if you protect the song, it cannot be removed from the set. Well, I have to disable one more thing too. I'm going too fast. Yeah, so when you protect it, it just keeps it in its place, highlights it green. So usually we'll do this to those 3 songs left over. And at the time, we played it in the order the song was selected in or protected in, followed by the tiebreaker. However, sometimes we weren't sure which one was protected first or second. That was up to the players to remember. So an enhancement I worked on in the future was to have them order whenever you select them, as you saw earlier when I demonstrated that. So when you hit protect, it shifts over to the left. And then I found having the vetoes on the screen too much information. So then I got rid of them. So now there's a lot less information to process on the screen. But yeah, this opened up, this adding these enhancements to the randomizing feature opened up a lot of different options for us for running tournaments. And me having both a League of Legends background and my friends having Dota backgrounds, those games go through a drafting phase whenever they select their characters. So players will ban champions before they select them. And I was inspired by that to come up with this format to use for Pump It Up. And then now one issue I had with Pump Out in particular though, is I found it very not user-friendly. When you go to the home page, you come to this page right here, whole lot of information, and then you have to go through a hamburger menu to set up the songs. But then where do you go to set up your songs? So it's not very intuitive to figure out how you set up that point in the first place, but we have it hidden under randomizer. But we created a Word document that people would just directly click on. And then when you get to it, none of the options are available right away. What you have to do is go through these little ellipses in order to add these features in, which we're still trying to figure out ways around that. However, I've moved away from Pump It Up since I no longer have access to the game. So I've moved on to Step Maniacs. Let me go back to my slideshow really quick. All right, so now we have DDR tools. So DDR's Dance Dance Revolution, that one's much more popular since it's more well known in the arcades. When people see Pump It Up, they'll call it DDR. And the person who made this version of the app made it like this. Let me see if I have it here. Yep, so here was the first version of their app. And I believe this one existed before the PumpOut one did, but I didn't play DDR actively at the time, so I don't know the full history of when this was out or when they started using this format. But it's very similar. You click to randomize the songs, and their version, when you click it, it fades it out, similar to what we did with the vetoes, until they had 3 songs. And then, going back to the slide, we have the current version of DDR tools. For some reason, my mouse does not want to work on the PowerPoint controls. Here we go. So now we have DDR tools. The main maintainer of this repo, he rewrote the entire app from bottom up in React and TypeScript. And then it doesn't use a server, so everything can build and run offline, which was a big issue for us at venues, not having stable internet. And then major updates to the original UI. Let me go and demonstrate that here. So here is DDR tools. You're presented with this homepage. It tells you right here, click draw to get some songs at random and choose other games from top left menu. So this one supports other games like an older version of DDR, a different game called Dance Rush, Sound Voltex, and Step Maniacs. Yep, so now you have the pictures of the song banners, the song art. Details are separated here. So you have like the song's BPM, beats per minute down here, difficulty levels down here. And then when you click on them, you have the actions appear, or you have more options available to them. So you have your protects, your pocket picks, which I will go over that in just a second, and vetoes. And we just added redraw to it recently, where we had an issue where songs would come up but neither player has it unlocked or it's not available in that cabinet. It shuffles one song randomly for it. And this one, having pocket picks, it allows the players to search for a song of their choice and replace it with that completely, and you get a label for it too. But yeah, all these options have labels on top now instead of just fading in, fading out, and also distincts between player 1 and player 2, whoever did that action. And before I got involved in DDR tools, the reordering did not exist yet for them. So they use protects in a way where it's pretty much to maintain the set order. Let me get through this real quick. So pretty much the way it would be played is the songs are played left to right, whatever's not vetoed. And for me as a player, I didn't like the part where, let's say my song was the very last one at the very end. If I protected it, I wasn't guaranteed to play that. So I might never get to that song in the first place. So then I worked with the maintainer to add the reordering part of it, like we saw in the PumpOut. So now when you hit the protect, it shuffles to the left, vetoes shuffle to the right. And there's mixed feedback on that. It's a different type of strategy depending on who you ask. They like it, they dislike it. There's no preference sometimes, or some people don't even know the difference. But yeah, that was an enhancement I added specifically for this just because I liked it so much more. And then the next thing I want to talk about, going back to my slides, my fork of DDR tools. Why did I choose to modify the original using out of the box? So let's go back to the app. Oh, one thing I also forgot to go over too is the original version had all the controls up top, like the difficulty levels, number of songs to appear, and all the other parameters. The updated version added it into this gear settings icon, so you can do everything from here instead, just to reduce the amount of things you see on the screen. So what I did for my version is I changed all this. Instead of being specific, or instead of having different games, I had it specific to each difficulty range, depending where you're in the tournament bracket. And then I have a CTA to see the rules of the tournament, CTA to see the current qualifier standings, and things like that. And then also with the original one, for the tournament rounds, you sometimes had to like change the settings for every single round to match everything. And I found a lot of user error in that part. So for me, it was easier just to create a dropdown that would change it for me. And then the next thing I did too is I preferred having a 7-song layout versus 5 songs, just because I like larger song pools over small ones. So let me share what happens when you put more songs in the other app, the original. Yep. So it gets smaller and smaller and smaller on the same line, which I personally didn't like too much how small it got on the screen. So I chose to fix it to 5 per row instead of, here, I have a good example. Let me do 3 and make it mobile. Yeah, so it stretches out really wide. And then if you look at this on a smaller screen, it'll stack up like this and then have one really long one like that, which I wasn't too crazy about myself. So here, let me show off what happens when you have 3 on my fork. Yeah, so it keeps them all the same size regardless, instead of filling up the space around it. And same thing on mobile, it's a fixed size instead of stretching out to fit the space. That's just personal preference on my end. And then same thing I did with the PumpOut, the vetoes, hide the veto charts instead of keeping it on the screen. Some players feel like there's a strategy to keeping the vetoes available. And I found in real world use case, no one really cared about that detail, but that could be argued depending on who you ask about it. And let me think, what else did I add? I think that was it for me on my side.